There's been a lot of recent legislative activities this week in the solar industry, so let's recap what's been happening across the U.S. I'm Jay Warmke with Blue Rock Station, and this is the news from the solar industry for the week of September 6th. Now, California bill has just recently passed that requires instant solar permitting using programs such as Solar App Plus for all permitting in counties that have more than 150,000 residents. Now, Solar App Plus is a program that's free to the various municipalities. The installers register with the program and pay a small fee whenever they register, and it uses artificial intelligence to then determine if their application contains a solar project that meets all of the guidelines required by that municipality. Well, this bill now goes to Governor Newsom for his signature, and we'll see how that works. As California goes, often so goes the nation. Speaking of California, California just approved a 2-year extension to property tax exemption on homes installing solar panels. So in other words, if you've installed a solar system at your home, you do not have to pay additional property taxes on the increased value of the home. Now, surprisingly, or not surprisingly, Missouri just this week the Supreme Court has ruled that a similar bill in that state that was passed in 2013 is unconstitutional, so that's going to go away. All right, back to California. The net metering 3.0, which was to be ruled on earlier in the year, is now expected to be ruled on at the end of September, on September 29th. In fact, there was a lot of controversy when the California Public Utilities Commission announced their perspective on it, which was going to lower the amount of money that was paid to people who net meter and sell electricity back to the utilities. It was going to increase dramatically the amount of fees that are charged just simply for connecting to the grid, and also was going to eliminate any carryover of any credits from a month-to-month basis. So there was a lot of protests. The preliminary announcement was then delayed, and now it's expected to be announced here at the end of this month. California also has just recently passed a bill to encourage the adoption of solar to low-income households using programs such as community solar. Now, this bill requires that any utility that serves more than 100,000 people must institute programs such as this. Now, community solar, whoops, I'm hiding behind here. Community solar is a program that does, in fact, have a large solar array that's often owned by the utility, but it doesn't have to be. And then that energy is allocated amongst homes, businesses, but it's not located at the physical site. It's simply put on there or accounted for in their billing. The University of Virginia has recently announced some policy guidelines that they hope to disseminate to a lot of local municipalities and authorities having jurisdiction that provides ordinance guidelines for how to decommission solar arrays after they've been built. Now, there's been a lot of concern about this, and so what they're trying to do is be proactive to say, all right, why don't you adopt this ordinance that states how the system should be decommissioned or deconstructed at the end of its useful life in a way that ensures that the developer of the system actually pays for all of the cleanup cost. Massachusetts has just passed a law that says that they can now double the size of solar arrays in residential systems that qualify for net metering. They've raised that now up to 25 kilowatts for residential systems that do qualify for net metering. They've also expanded pollinator-friendly incentives for commercial systems. In other words, for ground-mounted systems, they're trying to encourage that these things are, in fact, friendly to the bees and the butterflies, part of the green image of solar. In Minnesota, the utility Xcel has just announced a settlement. They were sued because there was a tremendous backlog of solar interconnection applications within that state. In fact, the Minnesota Solar Energy Association estimated that it would take about 260 years to clear the backlog that currently exists in that state if Xcel continues using the approval process that they're using at the moment. So they were taken to court, and there is now a settlement. In the past, Xcel maintained they had to review these applications one at a time, one after another. Now they can review them in parallel, looking at groups of applications, as long as there is no cause or no expectation that there's a limitation to the ability to connect to the grid. And they're also changing the way that they pay for upgrades to the grid. In the past, they required that the causer pays. In other words, if I wanted to install a system and the utility needed to upgrade the grid, then I, as the developer, bore 100% of the cost of that utility upgrade, which caused a lot of applications to simply cancel because it was too expensive, and then parts of the grid could never accept a large solar array. Now what they're going to do is set a fee that every application pays. That goes into a pool, and these fees will then pay for utility upgrades for the institution of distributed energy systems to the grid. And the big daddy that happened just this past couple of weeks is the Inflation Reduction Act. This is, of course, a national program that extends a 30% tax credit on solar installations for 10 years, so we begin to get stability, and then adds EV tax credits as well as credits for U.S. products, low-income areas, and brownfields for the development of solar. Well, that's the news from the solar industry this week. We'll see you next week.